Hello again, and it's time for another quick midweek video. Pirelli thought I wasn't coming for them. I'm coming for them. Anyways, after the Baku Grand Prix, I know I can make 3 videos on one race, piss off. Anyways, after the Baku Grand Prix, there was a lot of media scrutiny about Pirelli and how they've become rubber clowns again. It happens again. How do they do it? 2013 and 2021, 2 years that will live in infamy for the Pirelli tires. Then again, 2020 wasn't a great year for them either. They had lots of controversies and still didn't manage to stay out of the headlines all the time with those tires. But this year is this year. Let's talk about now. Pirelli has engineered a set of tires that simply isn't good enough for F1, and for people who know F1, they know the fact, or they know that I talk about this all the time, that these F1 cars right now don't have more downforce than any other F1 cars in history. That's simply not true. The Red Bull RB6 was the car with the most downforce of any in history, and the Bridgestone tires managed to hold that car up with no notable failures very well, if you remember correctly. 2010 Bridgestone tires, no problems. If it was on Pirelli's, then I guarantee you it would not have won that year because those tires literally cannot handle that much downforce. Thousands of kilograms of downforce, they can't handle that. And they can't even handle the little downforce that they have now. The annoying thing is they stripped downforce off the cars to help the tires, and then when the tires got worse this year, literally, it's a situation that keeps getting exacerbated every which way you look, and next year the tires are going to be even less reliable because they're going to be on 18-inch rims, meaning the tires are going to have to be smaller. They keep digging themselves into a hole, which is a shame here, but let's get back to the tire failures here. The 2 tire failures, people can say they're not interrelated because they're not at the exact same part of the straightaway. They are wrong because the tire failures happen on the same tire in the same area and the same problem both times. It's consistent. It's obvious what's happening. What's happening here is tire failures, okay? Tire failures. Now, for those who don't know what that happens, that means that the tires are under too much load and have too much wear on them, meaning that they fail. And by fail, that means explode and spin people around at 200 miles an hour, endangering the lives of drivers in the cars and in the other cars. It's not a great situation for Pirelli or the other teams because essentially what it proves is that the C3 hard tires cannot last for more than 30 laps on a medium load track. There are tracks with a lot more high downforce sections with a lot more load on the tires than this one track. People think that this is a high downforce track. It isn't. It's a high speed track. There's no reason for that to be as problematic as they are here. I mean, what's going to happen when we go to Silverstone and we get similar loads that we got last year? The tires are going to explode, for God's sake. And what I don't understand is why they didn't use harder compounds here. If they could have just put us on like the C5 as the hard tire, sure, the racing speeds would have been a bit slower, but who cares because it would have been about driver safety. And the fact is, if we were on the C5s, the Red Bull is notorious for making those be able to light up quickly and work well. What that would mean is that Red Bull would still win the race, but there would still be a fight with it. It would be very interesting. I would enjoy it. I think the fans would enjoy it more. And yet, instead, we had this farcical race that was still great to watch, but nonetheless, we had these tire failures that were just downright scary at times. I mean, the fact that Red Bull was in a position that was 1-2 at one point, and seconds later, Verstappen was spinning around at 200 miles an hour is just unbelievable to me. I mean, at least the tire failures in the previous 2 Pirelli issues were at the British Grand Prix, and although it's a fast track, both of the places where the tire failures happened were not in fast sections, and they were very lucky about that. So the fact that it was different this time, the fact that it was in a high-speed track, means that this is properly dangerous, what happened here today. Pirelli are meddling rubber clowns, and we need proper tire makers back in. Now, this has probably already been covered on our podcast, but it needs to be mentioned again and again and again because I just can't say it enough how angry I am with what's happened in today's race. I'm fine with Perez winning. I'm fine with Red Bull winning. What I'm not happy about is the fact that it had to win this way. It had to win this way. I mean, if he had overtaken on track, that would have been great, but instead he overtook because of the tire problems, which is just not a great thing at all. How are we in such a place where we find ourselves having tire troubles? Think about the time with the groove tire era. Sure, the cars weren't as fast as they are now, and sure, they weren't on slicks, but your tire failure chance was much lower because the loads being able to be placed on the tires weren't as great as they are now. Whereas now that we're on these slick tires, it worries me. And another thing is, I didn't get to make a video about this because last week I was very swamped, very busy, but next year the cars are going to be 790, essentially 800 kilograms in the races. At the start of the races, 900 kilograms at the start, 800 by the end of it. What that means is that the tires are going to have an even harder job, and I think we're going to be in such a place where that if a driver goes over a curb and spins up their wheels a bit, then it's essentially going to end the tire life because the heat cycling will be uneven and a stint will be pretty much ruined. I'm worried for next year because beyond the tire failures, what happens if Pirelli can't create a tire good enough for next year's cars? I mean, obviously, next year's cars are going to be great for overtaking, supposedly, but they're also going to be incredibly heavy, and they need a tire that works with that, not against that. And if we end up with a tire like this year's tire, which apparently all the drivers hate, I mean, they even said that on the, the race, they mentioned that, the commentators mentioned that, it was just amazing to me how the commentators know, and they're willing to say that the drivers hate these tires. It's just confusing to me. Then why are we using these tires? Why is Pirelli still in this sport if the drivers hate these tires? It's just, that's confusing to me. And beyond that, you've got the fact that what happens if their next year's tires aren't good enough for next year's cars and they cause failures and there's problems throughout the season? Then, even if the problems with the next season are blamed on the tires, it won't matter because the desired result of excellent overtaking just won't happen, and that will be hugely disappointing because F1 has invested hundreds of millions of dollars in these new technical regulations, and if they don't pay off, we've got a real problem. In fact, if they don't pay off, I think we're in a really worrying situation. I have a lot of hope for next year, but I really think that, we've got to be careful what we wish for with these tires, and it might just be time to go back to a durable construction from people like Michelin or Bridgestone, well-renowned racing tire providers. Pirelli only provides for a couple of series, and all that I can see with their tires is they're just notably crap. I think it's time for us to stop using Pirelli tires, and I think it's time for us to really take a hard look at these incidents and the danger they propose to other drivers. If other people had tire failures, we would have had a disastrous race here. It was lucky there was only 2 people, and I hope that it really gets sorted out later in the season. Use the hardest compounds if they have to. I don't care if that makes the qualifying laps slightly less exciting. I just don't care. I want it to be better, and I don't want there to be as much tire failures. But if you did enjoy today's video, consider liking and subscribing. And if you didn't like today's video, why not? Anyways, thank you for watching. Goodbye.